The words struck me like shards of ice as I stood frozen in the polished lobby, my charcoal gray suit suddenly feeling heavier than it should have. "Get this freeloader out of here," my father said, his voice sharp enough to turn heads. The security officer stepped closer, his hand hovering near my arm without touching it. I caught the brief flash of discomfort on his face. He didn't like this. But orders were orders. My mother avoided my gaze entirely, suddenly fascinated by the marble floor. My younger sister, Elena, wore that same smug half-smile she perfected years ago. The one that always meant she believed she'd won. "My name is Amelia Rhodes. I'm 38 years old, and this is how being publicly humiliated turned into the most calculated financial awakening of my life." Honestly, the betrayal shouldn't have shocked me. For over a decade, I'd been the family's invisible safety net. The dependable daughter with the successful consulting firm, the one they relied on whenever money quietly ran short. Emergency roof repairs, private school tuition, once in a lifetime, vacations that somehow happened every year. They always framed it as family investing in family. What they didn't realize as they toasted champagne inside that extravagant ballroom was that I had been investing, literally. The luxury hotel hosting their so-called exclusive family celebration, booked under Rhodes Strategic Holdings LLC. The custom gourmet catering my mother insisted was non-negotiable, paid directly from my corporate operating account. The first-class airline tickets for relatives flying in from 3 different states, charged to my business credit line. Everyone assumed it was funded by my father's retirement payout, a story he carefully maintained to protect his image as the unshakable provider. The reality: his retirement package amounted to a commemorative plaque and a modest monthly pension that barely covered utilities. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cause a scene. Instead, I straightened my shoulders, nodded calmly to the security guard to show I'd leave on my own terms, and walked out with as much dignity as I could gather. I moved through the hotel's glossy hallways, past glass elevators and designer artwork, down into the underground parking structure. Level C, my car waited exactly where I'd left it. Only after I shut the door did my hands tremble, just slightly, as I opened my banking app. One by one I began tapping. $8 $450 luxury banquet catering canceled. $13 $600 Elena Santorini honeymoon flights revoked. $5 $200 my mother's wellness retreat weekend terminated. $49 0 monthly payments on the coastal villa frozen. By the time I reached my driveway 25 minutes later, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Missed calls, voicemails, unknown numbers. Then came the pounding at my front door, hard enough to send my pulse racing. Through the peephole, I saw Marcus, Elena's husband. His face was flushed, tie loosened, shirt half untucked like he'd run the entire way. I slid the deadbolt closed and reached for a thick binder I'd prepared 4 years ago. The label on the spine read in precise handwriting, "Contingency, fix this right now." Marcus yelled through the door. They just canceled the food, the hotel locked the suite reservations, and our honeymoon tickets were voided while we were checking in online. I leaned against the door, my voice steady. "That's strange," I said calmly. Sounds like someone forgot to confirm who actually owned those payments. There was a pause. I could almost hear the realization sinking in. "You did this because they kicked you out." "No," I replied. "I did this because they broke the most basic rule. Don't bite the hand that's paying for everything, especially when that hand keeps receipts." I lifted the binder so he could see it through the small window. Neatly tabbed color, coded contracts signed under my LLC, cancellation clauses highlighting my sole authority. "I warned them years ago," I added quietly. "If they treated me like a bank, I'd eventually start acting like one. You're punishing the whole family," he snapped, lowering his voice as a neighbor walked past. A small smile touched my lips. "No, I'm protecting my investment and cutting my losses. They're your parents." They called me a beggar in front of dozens of people. That ended the conversation. Marcus stormed off muttering about lawyers and consequences. "Here's the thing about financial power. You can't outrank the person who controls the ledger, the contracts, and the backup files. I closed the door, walked into my home office, and placed the binder on my desk. Then I opened a new folder and wrote across it, Estate Review Phase 2 by morning. My inbox held 34 new messages, some pleading, some threatening, all laced with panic. My mother wrote, "We didn't mean it. Emotions were high. Can we talk?" My father sent nothing, only a forwarded invoice from the venue, marked past due immediate payment required. My favorite message came via a screenshot from a cousin. "Amelia's always dramatic. She'll come back. She always does." I laughed out loud in my empty kitchen and replied to the group thread they'd removed me from years earlier. "Just a reminder, I own the foundation. And I've changed the locks." Silence followed. That afternoon, an unexpected email arrived from Gordon Hale, my parents' accountant. He requested a meeting regarding certain inconsistencies. Specifically, the fact that payments for their prized coastal villa hadn't come from their family trust, as claimed, but from an LLC he couldn't trace. When I confirmed the truth, I asked the question I'd waited years to ask. Have they declared that property as their asset? The pause on the line told me everything. They listed it as a private inheritance gift. He admitted, no supporting documentation. They hadn't just been ungrateful, they'd committed fraud. Within 72 hours, legal papers were filed. The property title was reassigned. Taxes were corrected, with penalties. What they called a misunderstanding had become a full financial reckoning, because they hadn't just insulted me. They'd built their entire lifestyle on my silence. And silence was officially off the table. Entries in the trust ledger told a story no one ever expected me to read closely. One line was labeled Urgent Household Repair, but it was actually a full kitchen remodel for Elena, complete with imported stone countertops. Another entry showed $10, $400 listed as educational support. In reality, it paid for front row concert tickets and a luxury spa retreat my mother attended with friends. Then there was $31,800 quietly redirected into restoring my father's vintage coupe. The same car he once joked would be mine someday as a reward for being such a responsible daughter. They had drained the account dry, and then had the nerve to call me a beggar. Is this criminal? I asked Tiffany during our review. She chose her words carefully. It can be, if you want it to be. I shook my head. I don't want prison sentences. I want accountability. So we filed a formal motion. Financial restitution paired with documented trust misuse. They were given 30 days to respond, either settle privately or answer publicly. That's when the cracks turned into fractures. A message arrived from my mother late that night. "I'm scared, Amelia. Please don't destroy the family over money. We'll fix this." I stared at it for a long time. No apology, no responsibility, just fear. The only language they had ever respected. I replied with one sentence, "You're confusing destruction with disclosure." The following morning, Elena posted a carefully filtered sunset on social media with a caption dripping in implication. "Some people only show up when money's involved." Grateful to know who my real family is. I didn't respond. Online posts didn't matter. Court records did. Every transaction required proof. Every signature left a trail. Every dollar demanded explanation. Suddenly, the daughter they dismissed as too emotional was the authority they had to answer to. On day 20, their attorney reached out. His email was stiff, polite, and barely masked panic. He proposed a private settlement, $55,000, no admission of wrongdoing, and a mutual non-disclosure agreement. Tiffany laughed softly when she read it. They're trying to seal the cracks before anyone looks too closely. We declined. Because I didn't want hush money, I wanted a record. On day 25, my father finally broke his silence. He appeared unannounced at my office. The same company they'd once mocked as my little side project, now employing 29 people across 2 regions. He stood in the doorway, hat in hand, pride worn thin. "You've proven your point," he said quietly, "but you're about to ruin us. Are you proud of that?" I looked at him calmly. "No. I'm exhausted. Exhausted from funding your life while being erased from your legacy." He tried to respond. I stopped him. "You called me a beggar, so I stopped giving, and suddenly everyone remembered my value." He didn't apologize. He slid a signed check across my desk. Blank. I pushed it back. "This was never about your money," I said evenly. "It was about mine." After he left, an email notification appeared. Trust disbursement fraud. Preliminary hearing scheduled. The date was set for 3 weeks later. This time, they wouldn't be gathering to celebrate. They'd be showing up to explain themselves. Word spread fast. Quiet whispers turned into frantic group chats I was no longer part of. A cousin texted me directly, confirming what I already knew. They never believed I'd actually go through with it. They expected silence. They expected shame. They expected me to keep the peace while they benefited. But this time I wasn't the help. I was the witness. Tiffany and I prepared meticulously. Timelines, bank statements, screenshots of messages asking me to cover it just this once. Years of invisible labor, finally made visible. The night before the hearing, Elena messaged me for the first time since the banquet. "If you do this, I'll never forgive you. No apology, no denial, just a threat." As if my peace required her approval. I didn't reply. Some people don't want reconciliation. They want you reinstated into the role where you stayed quiet. The courtroom was sterile and quiet when the day arrived. I felt calm. My parents sat across the aisle, rigid, their lawyer checking his watch repeatedly. The judge asked clear, direct questions. Tiffany answered with numbers. Charts appeared on the screen, showing how the villa payments came from my LLC, how trust funds were diverted for personal use. Trips, spa days, vehicles, all disguised as family necessities. Their attorney objected, claimed informal agreements, called it a misunderstanding. The judge wasn't persuaded. She turned to me. "What outcome are you seeking, MS. Rhodes?" I stood. "Accuracy. I want the record to reflect reality." She nodded. Granted, in that moment my name stopped being a footnote. It became the headline. There were no criminal charges, no spectacle, but the ruling was binding. Misused funds were ordered returned to the trust. The villa's title was permanently transferred to my name. My parents were removed from any future financial authority over assets they hadn't earned. Tiffany called it elegant justice. I called it balance. Weeks passed. My phone stayed blissfully silent. Then one envelope appeared beneath my door. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a photograph from the banquet. Silver dresses, navy suits, raised glasses beneath chandeliers. And in the background, blurred mid-turn me, the moment I left, on the back, a sentence written in familiar slanted handwriting. This was when everything fell apart. I recognized Elena's writing instantly. I fed the photo into the shredder, because what collapsed wasn't family. It was the illusion of it. That same day, I opened a new folder. Rhodes Foundation, a grant program for first-generation women pursuing education without family support. The initial funding came from the sale of the coastal villa. Mine. 6 months later, I've had no contact with my parents or Elena, no calls, no messages, just distance, maintained with the same dedication I once gave to financing their lives. Sometimes, the healthiest resolution isn't reconciliation, it's freedom.